Hello and welcome to The German Guy Reviews. Germany is obsessed with this man. I briefly touched on the whole subject once in my Heil review, which you can find here on YouTube because for some reason the website does not recognize my fair use claim when it clearly does fall into that category. How the fuck does YouTube as a multi-billion-dollar corporation not have a 24-hour customer support hotline? Anyway, link in the description below. To get back on track, when I was growing up, Hitler was everywhere. On the History Channel, which from what I can gather is in America also basically just the Nazi channel, and aliens. In political discussions, which often enough had no relation to the man that stole Charlie Chaplin's mustache, his greatest crime of all. And of course, comedy. Oh my dear Whiskers. I believe every German comedian has at least done once a Hitler impression or reference. This guy has always been a spectre, always ready to pop up at any time possible. It's like he never went away. Which makes sense. After all, he was not only one of history's greatest monsters, but undeniably changed the entire order of the world. So of course that leaves a scar that will always remain. And naturally, because Adolf is forever embedded in our DNA, he is never old news. Which is why it is never out of fashion as a writer to use Hitler in your stories. Which brings me to our movie for the day. Guess who's back?
King amazed the world when on November 2nd, 7 days after awaking from a 30-year coma, he showed up to vote in the 2000 presidential election.
No. Sadly no. Although it would be much preferred, and Lord knows the world could use his advice right now. No, we are talking about this Guess Who's Back, from the book of the same name, which is exactly the same idea as the aforementioned Boondocks episode. What if Hitler were to show up in today's society? So let's take a look at this film and find out. The movie opens up with the camera giving us a nice view of our little nation on a day that is like any other. The bees are buzzing, the birds are chirping. Oh yeah, and somewhere in the middle of the grass, Adolf Hitler awakens from his slumber. As I was saying, an absolutely normal day. The Führer then stumbles through the city, completely confused how any of this is possible. Some thinking he is an actor want to make photos. Oh yeah, what you should know, this movie is in the same vein as Borat. Meaning some of the sections of the film are real reactions and things people really said, making you go, WTF, people like that actually exist and they have the right to vote? While other scenes are part of the fictional story from the novel. What the movie tries to do, however, is to blend the lines between fiction and reality, which would create a genuine disturbing feeling, but having read the book, I know which parts are definitely not real, so I should have better gone in blind. But even then, it is relatively easy to figure out which scenes are scripted and which are authentic. The basic idea, however, of trying to make the audience confused and not know what's going on, what's real and what is not anymore, could be thematically brilliant in another movie about, say, politics or social media, that would reflect our real-world experience where we have entered a stage where there are no basic universally accepted facts anymore. Me, I know for certain that I live in reality. I even got a diploma from Prager University to prove it. In our case, it's a nice attempt, but ultimately does only work medium level well. Nevertheless, let's keep moving. The old dictator, exhausted, ends up at a newsstand where the shopkeeper, also thinking he is just an actor in costume, why am I even saying this? It should be obvious everyone is thinking that. But then again, you never know. Lets him stay inside his booth for a couple of days. Having access to all recent information, Hitler gets updated on current events in Germany and beyond. I can't wait to see his face when he finds out about Israel. Someplace else at MyTV, which looks like a lawsuit waiting to happen, we witness a business meeting, learning that a woman named Katja Bellini gets promoted to head of the television company instead of a guy named Christopher Sensebrink. Pissed off, Herr Sensebrink fires another person named Sawatzki who tries to get his job back by finding the story of the century. Later at home, looking over his previous work, Sawatzki's mom notices something. And what she is noticing is Hitler running around in the background. So our documentary filmmaker decides to investigate. He manages to find him. Believing that he is a great comedian, Sawatzki takes him on a road trip through the country, having all kinds of wacky adventures. Until Hitler shoots a dog. Yeah, I completely forgot for a minute that he was pure evil, didn't you? At that same time, another problem emerges. Sawatzki has run out of money, so he calls his former employer, asking him for one last chance. If not successful, he will never bother him again. He says yes, but when it comes to funding, however, Sensebrink is not so open.
Und ich bräuchte Spesen.
Verbindung wird
Sie
gerade
können die Spesen ja überweisen,
ganz
einfach an...
schlecht.
Sie schütteln Ihr Handy. Jetzt stottern Sie.
You know how he would have believed you if you had said, "Oh, sorry, going inside a tunnel." The two men have an idea how they can get out of this mess, which is Hitler selling portraits. That certainly gives the line "draw me like one of your French girls" a whole different meaning. Also, good job creating an alternate timeline where Hitler actually did become an artist. Anyway, the two men are able to collect the needed money to finish their travels, and thanks to the interwebs, Hitler's fame explodes.
Tell me about it, Stud.
They return to the station and Sensebrink tries to throw them out, but what is Hitler if not very insistent? And so he convinces Frau Bellini to put him on TV. And he gives Sawatzki also a new job. Idiot dude who makes coffee for everyone. Because the real star of the show is Hitler after all. I just love it when I get to write lines like these. So Hitler is once again allowed to be on TV, under one condition.
Wir sind uns einig, dass das Thema Juden nicht witzig ist.
Da haben Sie vollkommen recht, Frau Bellini.
Jon Stewart, Woody Allen and Mel Brooks would like to have a word with you. About more than just comedy. Sawatzki and a colleague of his named Frau Krömeyer go on a date. The day after, she becomes Hitler's new secretary. And she introduces him to the internet. And some of you may know this meme. Well, now you know where it's from. He loves this invention. Why? Well, first of all, he thinks it's a product of Aryan brilliance. And second, it allows him to say whatever he wants, no filters attached. The real Adolf Hitler uploaded a video featuring Stefan Molyneux on race realism. And yes, before anybody goes into an offended rage mode, I know that nobody, really nobody, who is associated with this kind of stuff is a Nazi. They just happen to believe in every single conspiracy theory of the 20th century that the Nazis also believed in without the Jewish parts. But one quick look at the comments solves that problem. You know, when they talk about hordes of migrant savages invading our soil, rampaging through Europe, raping and burning down churches, subverting our culture. Did I forget something? Oh yes, and how whites are dying out, and white genocide, and how it's all really a purposeful takeover by the Islamic globalist Jewish New World Order. Anyway, before the next TV show, Hitlers writer team is asked to write some jokes for him.
Salafisten und Juden haben vieles gemeinsam. Beschnitten, Hakennase und leicht entflammbar.
Wir haben die Juden gebeten, ihr Fahrt nach Auschwitz zu bewerten. Die gaben alle 1 Stern ab.
The joys that PC people will never get to experience. Then it's time for Hitler's big night. But before the comedian whose show this is, played by Michael Kessler, has to get his jokes out of the way first. And the moment Germany and the world has been waiting for since World War II is here. For the first time in countless years, he is back on stage. It's the Hitler Man. Come on! I paid good money for good fascism. No, since he is who he is, he doesn't play by the rules. He waits nearly a solid minute before saying something at all, filling up the room with
anticipation.
Furthermore, he refuses to read any of the prepared jokes. Instead, he tells the people in the audience and in front of the devices in obvious demagogic fashion how the rich get richer and the poor always poorer, and how we are speeding towards the abyss, and how something needs to be done. And, well, everybody agrees. A populist puts people in a frenzy so they don't think and don't realize how they are being exploited. And yes, today it works just as well as so many years ago. I really would have preferred Martin Luther King coming back instead of him right now. If not for any other reason than that his speech at the end of that episode is actually very inclusive. There's something for racists and non-racists alike. But let's not get too serious here. The people again think he is just doing comedy, and the guys at the TV station, despite heavy protest by the host, are very happy, since all they care about is their views. And so Hitler becomes the most popular thing, airing on all shows, all channels, all the time. What year is it? Afterwards, we have some more encounters with real people. Specifically the neo-Nazi party of Germany, who says a bunch of stuff that isn't really surprising at all. And so Hitler continues to meme Nazi ideology into society like Pepe the Frog. Also, there's a scene straight from the book, where Hitler rushes into the neo-Nazi headquarters and embarrasses them, but it works better in the book, but more on that later. Of course, not all things can stay nice and well. So it so happens that the TV station receives an indictment for propagating hate speech, which was an attempt by Sensebrink to undermine Frau Bellini and get her position. But again, like I have said so many times, our government, being inconsequential as it is, says they can keep Hitler on air as long as the proceedings are still ongoing, which can take God knows how long. The wheels of justice are turning. Oh wait, that's the false direction. Later, a co-worker of Frau Bellini confronts her, asking if she has no conscience at all. He points out that what Hitler is doing is not satire. There is no double meaning. He is just a crazy asshole and she is an opportunist who aids him. Which leads her to start some research about this man and getting concerned when she finds absolutely nothing. No birth certificate, no address, no nothing, as if he never existed. So she asks him if he ever was a member of a radical right-wing party. His answer is as true as it is terrifying. He was not only a member, but a founder. Membership number 555 to be exact. Which, as he also explains, is a made-up number. The Nazis did this to make them appear as if they are larger than they actually are. There's no punchline in this, I just thought you should learn a little bit about history. And that was in 1919, which makes Frau Bellini laugh out loud, believing that this is just sarcasm, so the show goes on as usual. At a later day, the shooting a dog in the head thing comes back to haunt him. But as it is all too common in modern society, he simply apologizes, says it was all just a mistake, but really doesn't mean it, gives money to an animal rights organization, and that was it regarding any serious resistance. Remember that Vance Wagner guy from BoJack Horseman? This is getting uncomfortable. However, in that process, Frau Bellini got fired and Sensebrink put in charge of the TV company. And in a playful twist that wasn't in the book, the movie makers decided that Hitler could be the one who wrote the book this story is based on. So in this fictional story, this fictional Hitler wrote a fictional story, which actually is the real story, which means that we are all made up. The book becomes a bestseller while Sensebring's TV station goes downhill without the Führer, and they copy the infamous scene from the movie Downfall. Because memes. Sensebring meets up with Sawatzki at the set for the movie to the book in this movie made from a book, essentially begging him to make a deal with him. They will air his movie and he will get a permanent job at the station. But then something unexpected happens. Sawatzki visits his now girlfriend Frau Krömeyer, which turns out is Jewish, and her grandmother, seeing Hitler, starts to yell at him, remembering his face all too well, telling everybody in the room that he says the exact same things he said back then. And back then everybody was also just laughing. Until they were not anymore. Finally, Sawatzki starts to get suspicious and looks over his video footage one last time, seeing some time portal stuff in the background. I need your boots, your clothes and your vote. He tries to warn people, but of course nobody believes him, so he takes matters into his own hands. He kidnaps Hitler and forces him to jump off the roof of the studio, only to appear behind him. Having used his demonic powers, he tells Sawatzki some harsh truths. If he is a monster, were all the millions who voted for him monsters too? Is he the only one to blame? So many people come running to him because at their core they are just like him. The truth is he can kill him because he represents something bigger, something that can't be killed. But then a green screen appears in the background out of nowhere, and it is revealed that this moment and everything leading up to it was just part of the movie. What actually happened is much darker. In real life, Sawatzki was stopped and put in a mental asylum. And so the movie ends with Hitler driving away with his new Eva Braun, just as naive as the original one, into a country whose future is very uncertain, with people who don't know how to react to what is happening. Some are smiling, some are confused, and some of them go along with it. We hear protesters from totally not fascist rallies screaming at the top of their lungs, and Hitler's last words being that everything looks great for him. Everything is excellent in Germany, Europe, and the world. And this is certainly something he can work with. Okay, that was something. So, what are my thoughts? Well, first of all, the book is better than the movie, because of course it is. It's just the fact that when a film based on a book hasn't the character's most deep inner thoughts, there's a strong artistic tool missing. The scene with the neo-Nazi headquarters is way better in the book, because one of the things he is thinking is how pathetic modern Nazis are. Oh sure, they are as much disgusting and cold-blooded, but the originals would not even try to hide their violent tendencies. They would wear them as an honor badge. They would not hide behind euphemisms. Or play Skyrim and rant about feminism. As much as I appreciate the ending and the overall aim, the movie is too much like every comedy sketch that I saw a million times over. When it does follow the book, it's quite excellent. Good subtle critique of society, but I always feel like there's something missing. This certain delicate touch that was in the movie Heil. What I also have to point out is that where the movie differs in a significant way from its source material is that the book portrays a historically accurate Hitler, with lines directly from his speeches or his book. The reason why that works is the same why Serdar Somuncu's stand-up comedy works, who I also talked about in my previous review. You cannot help but laugh about the sheer absurdity of it all when you consider what it actually is that this guy believes. Only to then have the smile on your face slapped away in an instant when you are reminded that you are dealing with the words of a mass-murdering evil lunatic whose crazy bullshit ideas came to fruition. Here he is too often a bumbling, lovable idiot to be taken serious, even though the movie tries to make him serious. The whole meeting real-life people feels out of place and should have been left out. It creates an awful contrast that disrupts the flow of the story. It's at best an average enjoyable flick with some parts that are dragged out unnecessarily, and a great deal of the sharpness of the message that is in the novel gets lost, with the many German pop culture references, and ultimately it's missing its target in what it attempts to be. The German guy out and auf Wiedersehen. Thankfully, I know for certain that I live in reality. I even got a diploma from Prager University. Ah. How can global warming be real if ice are not real?